Good afternoon, everyone. The Ranter is now going to go into the news of the day, and judging by the past few days, I have no end of material to go into. So let's start with our precious chosen one, the likened to the last king of Israel, the second coming of God, and talk about President Trump's adventures in the G7, or as it actually is, a tale of two G7s. Whereas his perception he wants you to take away from his time at the G7 is that everyone was happy to see him and everything was hunky-dory and everyone was in agreement with everything he was saying. And the reality of the G7, where he was barely tolerated, he essentially alienated himself through his policies and the tweets and the pouting that he was doing, and didn't have much time to listen to him whining why Russia was not there or not. Evidently, during one of the dinners on the first night, that the diplomats and delegates were getting kind of testy with him for keep bringing up Russia when they did want Russia back in. During that disaster of an incoherent press conference he was doing, he couldn't handle the question on why he wanted Russia back so badly, and so we just spent the whole time berating Obama over it, talking about how Obama was outsmarted, or it was a disaster for Obama, and Obama didn't stop him from taking Crimea. If he was president, he would stop them from taking Crimea, and he didn't really go into any elaboration, of course, as to how he would stop it, nor why it would be Obama's fault that Russia is out of the G7. Because he got embarrassed. What? Because what? Obama was supposed to single-handedly stop Russia from taking Crimea. What fantasy land are you living? And of course, there would be consequences for him doing that, and those consequences was him being taken out of the G8. But Trump is being the big cheerleader for him to be brought back in. I guess he just misses his friend. But yeah, it's not too much to really go into the G7. A lot of that has been documented already, and it's just more of the same. It's like he goes over, either he talks about the other world governments, they're not paying their own way, especially when it's about NATO, or he's lamenting about why Russia isn't there, and then does his own thing, doing a scree on Obama for Russia not being there and not being able to stop Crimean annexation, whereas he couldn't even come up with what Obama could have done, because he tried. He could have tried this, he could have tried anything. It's like, oh my god. And it's bad enough to go into that, because the reporter that was talking to him on it, was saying that you're throwing out a patent lie. You're lying to the world. And he just kept stumbling over, it was Obama, it was on Obama's watch, it wasn't Trump, third person and all. And, just berates the reporter for being an organ of the Democrats. Okay? Yeah, she's a pancreas. And, but again, for me, the media can rise up and be brave. They don't only be brave about 30 seconds, and they just let them ramble on for things that are clearly not true. And for those who don't get why that's not true, for those who think maybe Obama was the catalyst in this, no, the entire organization of the world leaders voted Putin out because of his annexation for Crimea. It wasn't Obama. It was the whole group, unanimously. But like in American politics, where anything that happens under Trump's watch is not Trump's fault, it's everyone else's fault but Trump. With Putin, it is everyone else's fault but Putin. That Putin actively went and annexed a country that was under the client control of Ukraine. But no, that's not his fault, right? It's almost the same rhetoric as he does when he talks about China, where, you know, China's been taking us over the barrel all this time. China's doing this, China's doing that. He's devaluing its currency. He's manipulating its currency. It's not being fair to us. You know, all the other presidents are getting hosed by China. They're not gonna hose me, no. You know, then he praises China for the very things he's accusing them of. You know, it's not China's fault that they did the stuff that China was doing. No, it was everyone else's fault that they allowed China to do that. Is it like, do you detect a pattern in this thinking where it's like, I only do this because you let me get away with it? That's rather Roy Cohnish. And since someone who idolized Roy Cohn and wanted his AG to be just like Roy Cohn, that is an interesting inadvertent insight. It just tells you that, you know, you can do whatever you want, and as long as people let you get away with it. If they let you get away with it, no matter what type of context that is, then it's not on you if you do something wrong. It's on them for letting you do something wrong. It is the weirdest admission of the thought process of consequence. Because, as I say, Trump does not live in a realm of consequence. No one says no to him. And if they do somehow say no to him, he'll circumvent it or disparage them or whatever, but he'll still try to get his way. So yeah, that's entertaining. But again, despite him flailing about it being Obama's fault and that Obama was outsmarted by Putin, the entire organization did not want Trump to be there. They still don't, Putin rather, I don't know, at this point it's probably Trump too. They don't want Putin to be there. They're not wanting him to come back. And it's funny how this goes into where Trump wants the next G7 meeting to be on his property in Florida. At the same time, someone goes and complains that there are bed bugs on that property. So yeah, let's send all the world leaders over there. They'll go over there. They'll enjoy themselves in those bungalows. And yeah, I'm sure Trump won't profit from this, right? You know, there's no emollients clause here. Move along. There's nothing to see here. Which also brings up an interesting side point. For someone who is president, it's more of a point and more of a question. Do they actually spend their own money on anything? Like whenever they do their official meetings, official state visits, or even their vacations. Isn't that funded by our tax money? I mean, we see that every time he goes, you know, every weekend to Mar-a-Lago, goes to his golf course or his vacations. We hear how the bill is actually taxpayer paid. The millionaire claiming to be a billionaire has a nice, sweet run for himself, doesn't he? For the remainder of these 4 years, to maybe the next 4 years after that, if he doesn't get beaten, he gets to go wherever he wants and eat whatever he wants and entertain as much as he wants and doesn't have to pay a thing. And he's making money in office. Isn't that great? That no one wants to stop him from doing that, or they do want to stop him, but he has enough people protecting him that things like the Emoluments Clause or the Hatch Act for Kellyanne Conway, that can all be that can all be lapped off. You know, the law is supposed to apply to everyone, and we're seeing evidence for the past 2 years that that's no longer the case. Or maybe it was never the case, but the illusion was so strong that we believed, that idealistically believe that a law applying to me, applying to you, should apply to them, but it doesn't apply to them. This is the whole power corrupts thing. This is just the political flavor of power corrupts. We've certainly seen how power corrupts the system to protect people like Jeffrey Epstein or Harvey Weinstein. Over the years of being able to abuse the people, victimize people. Epstein's disgusting case, children. And he gets away with it by dying. No, that's just doesn't have to sit in court, doesn't have to listen to victims' reports. As far as he is concerned, whether it's suicide or it was not, he got out of consequence. Whether you believe in an afterlife or not, or where he may be, maybe he's rapidly regretting his error in taking his own life, or being killed, depending on which way you go with that, and all the sins that he went through in his life. You never know. Maybe it's just oblivion. But Trump, on the political side, he gets away with the same things as he did in life beforehand because of his enablers, because of people protecting him. I don't know. I mean, unless you see him being hauled into court, or at very least beaten in the next election, this train of I can do whatever I want with no consequences, and you can't blame me because even if I do something bad, it's not on me, it's on you for not stopping me. That's the mentality. It's the mentality he brings up about Russia with Obama. It's a mentality he brings up about China and Obama and the other previous presidents who had to deal with China. It's the same thing he's been dealing with North Korea. When North Korea fires off short-range missiles, he just brushes that off like it's nothing. We were only talking about nuclear. We didn't talk about short-range missiles. Everyone has short-range missiles. Short-range missiles, everyone trains on them. Everyone tests them. That's fine. The nuance in the problem of that is that short-range missiles can hit South Korea. They can cross and hit Japan. It could cross and hit our Americans in bases in Japan, in Okinawa, or in South Korea. What does he not get? Or what does he think that you do not get as American citizens? That he just wants you to just believe in his perception, in his little Candyland reality that is not reality. There's already articles now upon North Korea building and about to ship out their first major submarine that actually can fire missiles. And missiles that could be nuclear tipped. Now, I know we're going to brush this off in the Trump administration. That's fine, whatever. They're allowed to build boats. But when this boat, with its arsenal that could be nuclear tipped, finds its way away from Korea, find its way maybe down closer to Pearl in Hawaii, or close enough that it's range that it can fire off onto LA or anywhere else in the United States, then maybe not, but maybe it won't be on his watch, so it won't be his problem. So, segue from all that, his adventures in the G7. I don't know if you all read his little tweet upon Puerto Rico, talking about Puerto Rico is going to be in line of yet another hurricane. When will it end? I swear to God, it always sounds like he is blaming Puerto Rico for being an island in the Caribbean and is just asking for hurricanes. It's just mind-boggling how anyone just takes it seriously. Maybe they don't. Maybe we've gotten to the point where we're just sort of like, whatever he says, bullshit. We should. If he wasn't president, that's what we would be doing. This is bullshit. But since he's president, we have to hear about it in the news. We have to have panels on news shows analyzing every word he says. I'm a broken record with this. He talks about the money that he already sent, or our government already sent to Puerto Rico for their aid and relief after the last hurricane. And it turns out that the money he said that he was using, or that he sent, was actually not the money that they actually got. Bear with me for a moment. Let's see here. Yes. According to the... Oh, excuse me. Pardon me for that. According to Trump, he claimed for weeks that Puerto Rico has been given $91 billion for Hurricane Maria recovery efforts. They have not. It's not even close. Just so you understand, we gave Puerto Rico $91 billion for the hurricane, Trump again told the reporters Thursday at the White House. Puerto Rico has not received $91 billion. That number represents one reported government estimate of money needed for recovery on the island over many years. In fact, that estimate was considered to be on the high end, and Congress hasn't even considered giving Puerto Rico that much money. According to the Washington Post, Puerto Rico has spent about $11 billion of the roughly $40 billion reallocated by Congress so far. President Trump has spread a false narrative about the aid allocated to Puerto Rico. Why? Why lie about that? All that was from ABC News, incidentally. Why lie about the amount of money you've sent for relief? Because you can, I guess. That is the answer to anything that he says or does. Because he can. He can lie about that. You can go back and fact check it and find out the truth. Look at him and you'll just shrug and move on. No one's talking about that anymore. I don't know why I go into that voice, but I do. So he doesn't even send them the amount of money he says he sends them, as Congress goes back and forth as to how much money to actually physically send them. But it just becomes one of those ongoing things of he wants to have total praise for what he does, no matter how little he does of it, but then just see him as a savior. And when the truth is anything but, then he disparages the people who criticize that or points out the truth of that, like the mayor of San Juan, and how he just chalks up Puerto Rico as being so corrupt that they can't handle themselves. And the president of Puerto Rico is really bad. Yeah, he is, because that happens to be you. Puerto Rico is an American territory. represented by the United States of America. So its leaders, its real leaders, are us. It's you. And you're mismanaging, well, let's just say you're mismanaging an American property. Like you mismanage your own properties, don't you? But off that, so much to talk about. So much to talk about. But so little time, so I'm not going to, belabor this too much. I think let's end on one of my favorite stories coming out during the time of the G7, where he in a meeting suggests, because of all these hurricanes, why don't we throw a nuclear missile into the eye of a hurricane to disrupt it before it reaches American shore? You see, this is the type of story about him that makes me wish I wore glasses. Because if I wore glasses when I first heard this, I would have taken those glasses and slammed it onto the table and just face palm. Because how does anyone think this is a good idea? This is cartoon nonsense. And at the meeting, people were like, we'll look into that. We'll look into that, because they don't want to say no to the petulant child in chief that, or explain to him using sock puppets how that is not a good idea. That is far from a good idea. But and before anyone will go and say, maybe this is biased news reporting this, or this is just some stray article from some fake news. There is actually a memo from the Department of Homeland Security looking into that. So that actually, him actually saying that actually happened. And his defenders will go, well, this has been suggested before. And so it's not on him. This is not some far-fetched thing that he just came up with. And to my reply to that is that, yeah, it was suggested before. Back in the Eisenhower administration, when nuclear power and nuclear weapons was still in its infancy since Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I'm sure they did not understand at the point what the fallout of radiation would be if you throw a nuclear missile and explode it inside of a storm tempest that could be hundreds of miles per hour of wind, and you blow that in there. Don't you think that radiation is going to go somewhere? And what, the defenders will go, well, it's over the ocean. Yeah, that's great. Let's blow a nuclear weapon over the ocean in a tempest, blowing hundreds of miles per hour, with a huge swath of territory that can send radiation through and into the water. So, yeah, let's irradiate the ocean too and kill all the marine life. It's like this. It's like freaking fires in the Amazon. This is how boggling the people who are in power are so short-sighted, to the only reaping the profits of their power, no matter how much of the world that they abuse, just to make sure they get that money. I made a joke a year or so back when it was clear that Trump and, at the time, Scott Pruitt were trying to gut the Environmental Protection Agency, and they pretty much have now. With Pruitt gone, it doesn't even matter. Is that, maybe Trump wants things to go so bad so that people could, buy water from him or buy air from him. Maybe the joke from Spaceballs is accurate, where he wants to be the president that has his own Perrier company where people can buy clean air from him. Far-fetched? Maybe, but is it outside the realm of your imagination? I don't think so, my gentle snowflakes. But one last thing. He's going back to the G7. When the G7 was having its meeting on the environment, on climate change, and their chairs were arrayed, and there's the one chair conspicuously empty in the center because he simply wants to be the center of attention. Our President Donald Trump could not be bothered to show up. Now, his people say he wasn't at this meeting where the other world leaders of the G7 were because he was in his own meeting. His own meeting where he was monitoring bilateral talks between Germany and India. I believe those are the countries. But the one problem in that is that those leaders were at the meeting on climate change, and he was not. He's a liar again. And not even a good liar. Oh, they were with me. We were doing this. We're too busy over there. They're over there. Now, he supports the president of Brazil. While the president of Brazil is trying to keep foreign eyes, foreign footprints out of Brazil while the Amazon is burning. When you dig into what's going on in Brazil with the Amazon, you dig into this particular leader of that country, you find a lot of horror stories. You find that he doesn't really give a shit about environmental regulations. He wants to develop the land that now has the rainforest being burnt away from. He has no respect for the indigenous tribes there. Wasn't one of those people were on showed up in the news the last few days talking about how he's essentially committing genocide on them. He treats them less than animals. And it's not as if he's preserving any animals anyway, because the fire's burning. People are wondering whether or not he himself was setting the fires. Because when the fires are coming out, he said that his detractors were the ones that set the fire to make him look bad. Yeah, the people who are pro the environment, pro preserving the rainforest, do not want the rainforest damaged in any way, does not want the people inside the rainforest, the independent tribes, to be displaced in any way. Yeah, they sent the fire, right? And he doesn't want any foreign help to put out the fires. No, he'll send his military to put out the fires. But no, none of you go. We'll take care of it. None of you go. No, this is not your business, not your concern. This is on us. We'll take care of it. You can go drink your lattes. Not getting the fact that the rainforest, according to many environmentalists, produces 25% of the breathable air globally. So if the rainforest is all burnt up, that source of natural oxygen will be gone. The indigenous tribes in there will be displaced. The indigenous wildlife will either be displaced or die, or ultimately die anyway after being displaced. And what does Trump say about this? Well, Trump is just fine and dandy with the leader of Brazil since he's so much like him. And, adds on to the talk of supporting the president and hoping that the fires will come out, or will go out, or be put out. But, he supports him in his decision not to allow foreign help. Even though Trump is there and ready to help, ready to send our people down there. We'll volunteer to go down there. That's fine. Trump orders that. I'm not going to complain about that. He's not going to do that. But I leave you with this thought, since there's so much worry and wonder upon this about this guy and the land that he is governing, this valuable to the world rainforest. He sends his military in to put out the fires. Are they using water hoses? Or are they using flamethrowers? It's important for the world that we know which way that is. In any event, this is part one of my Ranter's Rant of the Day of our news. And I will be back for part two because my urge to rant is rising. See you later.